Hey, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Lawren Markle. I'm with LAEDC, and big thanks to BizFed for recognizing this is such an important issue and engaging and putting on these events. It's a big production effort and costly for them, and I think the investment's huge, and just thanks to Tracy and the whole team at BizFed for putting this together. So LAEDC, we're a nonprofit. We look at the future of the economy. We try and figure out what's it going to take to keep businesses competitive, ways we can assist different industries in town. And, as we look into the future, and I'm very tall, so that's helpful for that purpose, we look and we see earthquakes in the future. Who doesn't, right? So we looked around to see if there was any good advice out there for the business community, and we kept running into guides that had very minimal advice in them. A lot of stuff on family preparedness, right, which is great. But then you got to the section on business, and it would give you some platitude like, assess your IT vulnerabilities. That's great. Or make a list. I like that one especially, make a list. Okay, I'm going to make a list. But we wanted to really get into some of the nitty-gritty actual steps you can take. So we put out this guide. We worked with about 24 experts in LA County to put this together. And it's really, the whole idea is just very actionable, tactical steps that businesses can take. So we wanted to make it easy, and we're kind of hoping that people sort of take, hey, I can knock out one of these every week. Hand off this task to an admin and see if they can complete it and move ahead. So let's see if I can advance the slides. I am trying. Maybe I can get a little help from the back there. Okay, great. So, resiliency, it really encompasses a lot, right? It could be earthquakes, could be fires, could be cyber attacks. Even thinking ahead to the next recession, do you have what your organization needs to survive a recession? Even things like succession planning, if you're a family business, do you have it kind of figured out what's going to happen if the principal retires? So we do a lot of this assistance for businesses. We've got a free service we provide to businesses to help them look at these kinds of issues. And we've got a team in the field that actually does that kind of work. And but looking at earthquakes specifically today, there's a couple things we can sort of think about in the aftermath of, I'm thinking a big earthquake. Power could be out. It's possible that there could be rolling power outages. The power comes on and comes off. You have to think about how that would impact your IT systems. Power, water, other utilities, they may be out. The internet may be down. Cell phones may be down. So how do you conduct business in that environment? What can you do right now to put yourself in a better place for those situations? And so, you can also anticipate your workers are likely going to be at home. If they're at business when this happens, they're going to want to go home. And if they're already home, they're not coming to work. So how can you harness some of their productivity at the house? And the good news is there are a lot of new tools out there. If you think of where we are today compared to Northridge, the cloud didn't even exist back in '94. So there are a lot of new tools out there. And, we've got our guide is out now. Outsmart Disaster is a program the state runs, which offers this resilient business challenge, which is very painless. You can go online and take that and see how you're doing. And even cyber security. The City of LA's got a new cyber lab. I don't know if you've heard of it. They've got a great event coming up. I think it's September 17th and 18th. So you could go get some advice on how to harden your IT infrastructure against hacking. But in particular, the IT side of this is really helped by cloud email, cloud backup, but even things like satellite phones and energy storage have come a long way. So you can really take advantage of those, and we'll dig in on some of those a bit. So there's some general preparation. The good advice I got from some of the folks that helped us put the guide together, make a really short list, because you're not going to be able to do everything that you normally do after an earthquake. You really have to think, here are the 3 things that we have to accomplish to keep operations running. Maybe it's by department, but really make a short list, okay? And think about dependencies like suppliers. Are there any product companies in the room right now where you're actually making products, shipping products, that kind of thing? Well, okay, so you have to think a little bit about supply chains. You may have other vendors that you rely on for various pieces of your business. You have to think about, are they prepared? Have a conversation with them. What do we do if that happens? How do I reach you guys? And then, of course, testing plans. That goes without saying. So on IT, this is probably the biggest area you can take steps now, and we spent a lot of time in the guide talking about this, but in particular, you can buy appliances now that sit next to your computers and will do overnight backups to the cloud. They can back up your data. They can back up an entire image of your computer server. And that means if you ever have to start with new hardware, you'll have an image ready to go. You can load that right onto a new piece of hardware, and the configuration is done that simply. And it's easy to configure that. The vendors I'm familiar with are Datto and Infrascale, and we mentioned those in the guide, but there are other solutions out there. I think we were using Datto at LAEDC, and now we've switched to Infrascale, and it's, there's technical advantages to either one. But you could even ask them, hey, if we ever had to spin up a server in the cloud and run our applications in the cloud, could we do that? And they'll say, yes, we can take steps now. One of the things you have to think about in these scenarios is, can I actually get on the cloud and do some stuff? So, okay, so my workers are at home. Maybe they've got a cell phone. Maybe cell phone service is somewhat available. So are they able to log in? Do you have any apps on their smartphones that allow them to perform some of the financial functions, run payroll? Or maybe you've got a client deliverable that's critical. Where is that information? Is that sitting on a server in your building, or are you using Google Docs, or do you have it backed up in the cloud where you can get to it? Email, that's a no-brainer. Move that to the cloud. If you're using something like Gmail, that's already in the cloud, but our Outlook system is actually based in the cloud. So there are a lot of steps you can take to really help out there. And as you're making these moves, putting more stuff in the cloud, just look at your resilience to hacking. Make sure you've got dual authentication on smartphone apps and that kind of thing to make sure you're not exposing yourself. Customer facing, I guess the biggest one I'll mention here is websites. If your website's hosted by somebody, where is it actually? Is it sitting on a server at your IT company? Better to put it somewhere out of region, or in a data center out of region, up in the cloud again, because you want the website running, and there's no reason you should have it hosted on a place here in LA where it can be subject to a power failure in that scenario. So give that some thought. Financial, I think a few people have talked about this today. In particular, most of the business insurance policies out there do not cover earthquake. You can get policies for that. Some of the carriers in the unregulated market do offer those policies, so you have to assess whether that's a fit for you or not. But you can certainly talk to your bank about a line of credit for this scenario and get those wheels rolling ahead of time. The Small Business Administration will offer emergency loans. Even if you're a homeowner, they offer emergency loans. And California iBank is another organization that will offer loans to businesses in the aftermath in an emergency. One last thing I thought was pretty innovative. There are some businesses around town that have set it up so that payroll will run automatically if there's a huge earthquake, and at least one payroll cycle will run before, if they can't figure out how to muster the resources internally after a big shake. So remember, your employees are going to need that money because they're going to have rebuilding to do as well, right? So those are some good tips. I think we've had a lot of folks talk about your physical facility. The only thing I'll mention here is take a step. Put this on your budget. At least budget for something. And maybe it's an inspection. And then look, what's the low-hanging fruit? Put some money on your budget this year towards addressing that. And the other side of this is on the power piece, you may be considering solar plus storage at your site. That's a pretty good scenario for after an earthquake. If you can switch off the grid and run off solar and battery storage, that gives you some flexibility that a lot of other folks won't have. And that'll pay off down the road with utility rate changes too. There's some other tips in the guide you can look at on this. So really, this all comes back to training your employees a little bit on how to do this stuff, and then making sure you try it out. Can I actually be at home and on my smartphone and do this operation? Can I actually switch off the grid and run the building on backup power? You have to try these things out, make sure they work, just like you try your tape backups to make sure you can actually recover from a tape backup. Although, as you can tell, I'm urging people to move away from tape backups altogether. But you still have to test and see if those backups work, right? So those are some of the biggest tips I have for you. I would just ask you to try and share this, share our guide. We have it online. You can get it at leedc.org/EQ for earthquake. And we just hope to share these ideas with as many folks as we can at chamber meetings or wherever you are, just to help. The more businesses take some action now, the stronger our economy is going to be after this, and the more jobs will be saved. And the whole rebuilding effort on the residential level is going to be dependent on paychecks and businesses being, surviving and strong. So, we're going to help everyone, all our neighbors out through the work that we enact ourselves. So, with that, I'll just say thanks again to BizFed. I really appreciate it. And are there any questions? Yeah. Oh, hang on.
Can you give us an example of a business that's done it right and then a business that's done it wrong, where like someone's done well and like they've prospered from it, and then maybe somebody on the flip side?
So I think I can say unequivocally, most businesses in LA have not done anything about earthquake planning. It's really been out of sight for so long. The Ridgecrest quake, I think, started to get people thinking about it again. But trying to find case studies in LA of people who have actually gone through and done a lot of these resilience steps, I would be making phone calls all day to try and find an organization that's done it. So what we did was rely on a lot of organizations that are forward-thinking. Some of the insurance company members that we have. One of the folks at Western Asset Management, who specializes in business continuity and disaster recovery, was particularly helpful because he's worked with businesses elsewhere in the country, like Houston, where they get hit by a big hurricane, and not dissimilar to the kinds of disruption we would see here. But just thinking about all the physical assets you have, and even taking pictures of your assets and putting those in the cloud, or pictures of your tax documentation and your business license, putting those in the cloud so you're not hunting for them as you try and make an insurance claim. Those are all steps you can take, and I think I'll just say we have a lot of work to do as a region trying to get more businesses involved in thinking of this. Any other questions? Tracy.
Lawren, the guide that everyone, it was at the handout, or it was at the counter when you walked in, and you can take more. LADC did a great thing when they put this together, is besides it being available digitally so that everyone can access it online, they did print thousands of copies. So for your business group, your chamber, your trade association, and so on, you can ask Lawren for, if you need the 100 copies or whatever for your group, and then they will provide it to you free of charge, I believe, right?
That's right?
So please take advantage of it. His contact information is in your agenda. And so, they can just follow up with you and get copies and then disseminate it to your colleagues and business partners.
We also have a version printed in Spanish as well. So, thank you very much to BizFed, and really
Lawren, sorry,
your time. And,
Ali's got one more question.
one
We
more
can't let you
question.
go yet.
Yes. Thank you very much, Lawren, for being here as well, and your participation as an organization certainly is important to this partnership. But as businesses, other than communicating and passing out these brochures, over long periods of time, we know this is, when it comes to, this is a behavioral change. There is an emergency? Okay. But there is certainly this is a behavioral change. We don't expect things to change overnight. We cannot expect the whole society, all of the businesses, especially with the with the status we're in today, where you believe that most of our businesses are not even thinking, are not even prepared. Longer term, what do you think we should do? Is there any discussion within your organization that we really have to have a more robust educational effort regionally, maybe working with the SCAG and, you know, the county being such a big player in within our region?
BizFed's taking a leadership role in this right now and trying to, you know, and we can all do the same as we're having conversations over networking events, talking to other businesses. Just ask them, hey, what are you doing about this? And, you know, our thought is just try and knock out one step every once in a while, once a week. Hand it to, you know, one of your admin people. Go take pictures of our assets today, and you know, copy the stuff out of this directory on our server and load it up in the cloud. That's 10 minutes. You knocked one more thing off the list, and you can go through the whole list that way. So we hope people will sort of think about that as a, you know, take a baby step every week, and you'll get through the list and be in a much better footing going forward. So if we all do that, and if we spread the word and spread the ideas like that, I think that's going to be a big help. And I'll close with that. Thank you very much to BizFed again.